I stood in the dimly lit bathroom, my hands trembling as I gripped the DNA test results. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Not the father. The words stared back at me, cold and undeniable. Naomi's voice echoed from the bedroom, light and carefree. Babe, can you grab me some water? I clenched my jaw. How long had she been lying to me? How long had she looked me in the eye, kissed me, shared my bed, all while knowing this child, the child I had been preparing to raise as my own, was never mine? I took a deep breath, stuffing the paper into my pocket. Not yet. I couldn't confront her yet. I needed to know everything. Stepping out of the bathroom, I forced a smile, handing her the glass. Naomi lay in bed, her dark hair spread across the pillow, looking at me with those same deceiving eyes. Thanks, babe, she purred, taking a sip. I watched her, my stomach twisting. She had no idea that I knew. No idea that her perfect little lie was about to crash down around her. And she had no idea about the revenge I was already planning. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching Naomi sip her water like everything was normal. Like she wasn't the biggest liar I had ever met. Every time she blinked, every little smirk she gave, it all looked different now. My stomach twisted, my pulse hammering in my throat. She yawned and stretched, her shirt riding up slightly, exposing the small curve of her stomach. The baby that wasn't mine. Long day, she asked, her voice soft, almost innocent. I swallowed the rage burning in my chest. Yeah, I muttered, running a hand through my hair. I had to play it cool. If I exploded now, I wouldn't get the full truth. And I needed it all. Every dirty detail. I glanced at her phone on the nightstand. It buzzed once, a message. Naomi didn't even flinch. She just took another sip of water and set the glass down, completely unbothered. My eyes flicked to the screen before it faded to black. Miss you already. Can't wait to see you again. My muscles locked. Who the hell was texting her at midnight, saying they miss her? I forced myself to relax. I couldn't make a move yet. I needed more. I needed to be sure. I needed to catch her red-handed. She turned to me, her eyes scanning my face. You okay? I gave her a slow nod. Yeah, just tired. Naomi smiled, leaned over, and kissed my cheek. The audacity. I'm gonna shower before bed, she said, stretching again before slipping out of bed and heading to the bathroom. The moment the door closed, I snatched her phone. My hands worked fast, heart racing. I pulled up her messages. There he was. Jake, can't stop thinking about tonight. You looked so damn good in that dress. Jake, wish I could have stayed longer. I hate sneaking around. Naomi, I know, baby. Just a little longer. He's still clueless. Jake, and the baby? Naomi, it doesn't matter. He'll never know it's yours. My vision blurred. My chest tightened. I gripped the phone so hard I thought it would shatter. She knew. She knew the baby wasn't mine, and she was still planning to trap me, to make me raise another man's child while she kept sneaking around with him. The bathroom door opened, steam spilling out into the room. Naomi walked out in nothing but a towel, wiping her face. Babe, what are you doing? I snapped out of it, my fingers flying across the screen to close the messages. I set her phone down casually. Just checking the time? I lied smoothly. She smiled, completely unaware of the war raging inside me. Come to bed. I forced a breath and nodded. I slid under the covers beside her, my body stiff, my mind spinning. She curled up next to me, her head resting on my chest. I wanted to push her away. I wanted to scream at her, to drag her out of bed and throw her out of the house. But not yet. No, Naomi had no idea what was coming for her. I was about to destroy everything she thought she had under control. I barely slept that night. Naomi's body was curled up against mine, breathing softly, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. The messages, the lies, the baby, it all played in my head like a sick movie on repeat. By the time morning rolled around, I had made my decision. I wasn't just going to walk away. I wasn't going to be another fool who got played. If Naomi thought she could trap me, if she thought she could keep using me while she carried another man's child, she had another thing coming. She stirred beside me, letting out a soft sigh before opening her eyes. Morning, babe, she murmured, stretching. I forced a small smile. Morning. She had no idea that everything had changed. After breakfast, I pretended to leave for work, but instead, I doubled back and parked down the street. I needed to know everything. And if Naomi was as careless as I suspected, she'd slip up soon enough. Sure enough, an hour later, her car pulled out of the driveway. She wasn't dressed for errands. Tight jeans, a low-cut top, and freshly done hair? No, she was going somewhere for him. I followed at a distance, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. 15 minutes later, she pulled into a parking lot next to a hotel. My stomach twisted as I watched her step out, check her reflection in the window, and then disappear inside. I exhaled slowly, rage simmering beneath my skin. It was one thing to suspect. It was another to see it with my own eyes. I grabbed my phone, snapped a picture of her walking in, and then waited. 15 minutes passed. Then 30. I watched the entrance like a hawk, waiting, my pulse hammering. And then, just as I expected, he appeared. Jake. Tall, smug, with the kind of arrogance that made my fists itch. He strolled in like he owned the place. No hesitation. No guilt. Just a man who had been doing this for a while. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. I wasn't ready yet. I needed more. I waited another hour before they finally emerged. Naomi stepped out first, her hair slightly messy, her smile lazy. Jake followed close behind, his hand brushing against her lower back. I took another picture. Perfect. Naomi's phone buzzed in her hand, and she laughed at whatever message she had just received. I knew it wasn't from me. I gritted my teeth. She really thought she was untouchable. They said their goodbyes, a lingering touch on her arm before she got into her car and drove off. Jake stood there for a moment, watching her leave before heading back inside. I had seen enough. It was time to act. I drove back home before Naomi did, pretending like I had been working all day. When she finally walked through the door, she was all smiles. Hey, babe, she chirped, placing her purse on the counter. I kept my expression neutral. Hey, how was your day? She shrugged, kicking off her shoes. Just ran some errands, nothing exciting. I nodded slowly, watching her every move. She was so damn comfortable lying to my face. I reached into my pocket, pulling out my phone. Yeah? You sure about that? She frowned. What do you mean? I turned the screen toward her. The photo of her walking into the hotel. The photo of her walking out with Jake. The color drained from her face. Gotcha. Her mouth opened, then closed. She blinked rapidly, scrambling for an excuse. It's not what it looks like, she stammered. I tilted my head, pretending to think. Really? So you weren't meeting Jake? You weren't inside that hotel for over an hour. She swallowed hard, her hands gripping the counter. It was just a meeting. We were talking. I let out a cold laugh. Talking? In a hotel room? She hesitated for a second too long. The silence was deafening. Then, she did what I knew she would do. She flipped the script. Why were you following me? She snapped, her eyes narrowing. Do you not trust me? Is that what this is? I stared at her in disbelief. Unbelievable. Even caught red-handed, she was trying to turn it back on me. You really think that's gonna work? I asked, my voice dangerously calm. She huffed, crossing her arms. I can't believe this. You went through my phone, and now you're stalking me? That's crazy, Liam. I let her rant, let her dig herself deeper, watching as she tried to manipulate the situation. But I wasn't playing that game anymore. You're lying, Naomi. I said finally, my voice cutting through her excuses. I know about everything. The texts, the hotel, the baby. Her eyes widened slightly, just for a second, before she masked it with anger. You're insane, she spat. You're making things up. I reached into my pocket again, this time pulling out the DNA test. She saw the paper, and for the first time, real panic flashed across her face. Not the father. I read aloud, shaking my head. So tell me, Naomi, if I'm not the father, who is? Silence. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She looked trapped, like a rat caught in a cage. I took a slow step forward, my gaze never leaving hers. You were never going to tell me, were you? She swallowed hard. Liam, please. Save it. I cut her off. You were going to let me raise another man's child. You were going to lie to me for the rest of our lives. She flinched at my words, but didn't deny it. That told me everything. My heart should have been breaking, but all I felt was cold, burning rage. Naomi wasn't sorry. She wasn't even ashamed. She was just mad that she got caught. And I wasn't done with her yet. The silence between them stretched, heavy and suffocating. Naomi's breath hitched, her fingers twitching at her sides. The DNA test lay between them like a grenade with the pin already pulled. There was no explaining this away. No twisting it into something else. Liam watched her, his chest rising and falling in controlled breaths. He had expected an explosion, tears, some desperate attempt to fix what was already broken. Instead, Naomi just stared, like a woman calculating her next move, not one who had just been exposed as a liar and a cheat. "You were never going to tell me," Liam said, his voice quiet but sharp. It wasn't a question. He already knew the answer. Naomi licked her lips, hesitating for half a second too long before exhaling sharply. "I didn't think it mattered," she said, her tone almost defensive, like he was the one being unreasonable. Liam's fingers curled into fists. Didn't think it mattered. The sheer audacity of it made his blood boil. "Didn't matter?" he repeated, his voice low and dangerous. "You were going to let me raise another man's child. You were going to lie to me for the rest of my life." Naomi scoffed, rolling her eyes, as if his reaction was over the top. "I was trying to protect you, Liam," she said, crossing her arms. "I knew you'd react like this, and I didn't want to lose you." Liam let out a breathless laugh. Unbelievable. Even now, she wasn't taking responsibility. She was making herself the victim, as if he was the one tearing their marriage apart. "You're unbelievable," he muttered, shaking his head. Naomi exhaled sharply, tapping her foot against the floor. "Okay, fine. Yes, I screwed up," she admitted, her voice clipped, impatient. "But we can get past this. It's not like I don't love you." Liam's jaw clenched so hard it ached. Love? This wasn't love. Love didn't look like deception and manipulation. Love didn't look like trapping someone into raising a child that wasn't theirs. "I saw you," he said, his voice quieter now. "Cold. I followed you to the hotel. I saw you with him." Naomi stiffened, and for the first time, she actually looked nervous. "You what?" "You heard me." He met her gaze, watching the flicker of panic in her eyes. "I watched you walk in. I watched him follow. And then I watched you walk out an hour later, smiling like you hadn't just stabbed me in the back." She took a step back, her fingers tightening around the fabric of her shirt. "You're spying on me now?" "Jesus, Liam, that's insane." He barked out a laugh. There it was, the deflection. When cornered, attack the man you betrayed. Shift the blame. Make him the problem. Insane. He took a step forward, forcing her to meet his gaze. "What's insane is thinking I wouldn't figure it out. What's insane is lying to my face over and over. What's insane is thinking you could make me raise another man's child and get away with it." Naomi opened her mouth, then closed it again. The panic in her eyes was real now, but Liam wasn't sure if it was because she felt guilty or because she realized she had finally run out of lies. She swallowed hard. "Liam, you're leaving." The words left his mouth before he even fully processed them. Naomi blinked. "What?" "You heard me," he said, his voice firm. "Pack your things and get out." She gaped at him like he had slapped her. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious." A sharp laugh escaped her lips, but there was no humor in it. "Oh, come on, Liam. You don't mean that." Liam didn't blink. "I do." Her jaw clenched. "I don't have anywhere to go." "Not my problem." Naomi's expression twisted into something ugly. "You're really going to do this?" "Over one mistake." Liam's hands trembled at his sides. One mistake. One mistake. She had lied. She had cheated. She had tried to trap him with a child that wasn't his. And even now, caught in the act, she still wasn't sorry. "You have 10 minutes, he said, stepping past her. "Get your things and go." Naomi stood there for a moment, stunned. Then, as if snapping out of it, her expression turned ice cold. "You'll regret this," she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. Liam turned back to her, his jaw tight, his chest heaving. Regret? No. The only thing he regretted was not seeing the truth sooner. And Naomi? She would be the one regretting everything. Naomi's stare burned into Liam's back, but he didn't turn around. His fingers gripped the edge of the dining table so tightly that his knuckles turned white. The air between them was thick, charged with an energy that crackled like a storm about to break. "You think you can just throw me out?" Naomi's voice was sharp, edged with disbelief and fury. "After everything?" Liam exhaled through his nose, forcing himself to stay calm. The nerve of her, standing there like she was the victim. Like he was the one who had done something unforgivable. "You did this, Naomi," he said, his voice steady but cold. "Not me." She let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. "You are so dramatic. You act like I killed someone." Liam turned, his eyes locking onto hers. "You killed my trust. You killed this marriage." And you had the audacity to try and trap me with a child that isn't even mine. Naomi's expression flickered, just for a second. A shadow of something crossed her face. Was it guilt? Regret? Or was she just trying to figure out a way to twist this in her favor? Then, just as quickly, it was gone. You know what? She snapped, throwing her hands up. Fine. I'll go. But don't come crying to me when you realize what a mistake you've made. Liam scoffed. A mistake? The only mistake here was trusting her. Naomi stormed past him, her heels clicking against the floor, but before she could reach the staircase, Liam spoke again. Who is he? She froze mid-step. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. Then, slowly, she turned to face him. What? You heard me. Liam's voice was eerily calm. Who's the father? Naomi crossed her arms over her chest. Why does it matter? Liam's blood ran cold. Why does it matter? His jaw clenched. Because I want to know the name of the man you threw our marriage away for. Naomi rolled her eyes, but Liam could see it. The way her fingers twitched slightly, the way she shifted on her feet. She didn't want to answer. But Liam was done letting her control the conversation. Is it someone I know? He pressed, stepping forward. A coworker? A friend? Naomi's lips pressed into a thin line. And then, his stomach dropped. The silence stretched just a second too long. The way her eyes darted to the side. The way she suddenly seemed uncomfortable. Liam sucked in a sharp breath. Oh my God. He didn't even realize he had said it out loud until Naomi's gaze snapped back to him. His mind raced, fitting pieces together. The times she came home late. The way she suddenly got secretive with her phone. The way she started dressing up more for work. The way his best friend, Josh, always looked guilty when Liam mentioned Naomi. His heart pounded. Tell me it's not Josh. Naomi's face was unreadable. Liam took another step closer, his pulse hammering in his ears. Tell me you didn't sleep with my best friend. Naomi inhaled, then exhaled. Slowly, carefully, too carefully. And then, she smirked. Liam felt like the air had been knocked out of his lungs. You, his voice came out strangled. Surprised? Naomi tilted her head, her eyes gleaming with something cruel. You were always so trusting, Liam. So naive. It was almost cute. His fists clenched. How long? Naomi shrugged. Does it matter? Liam's jaw tensed. It matters to me. She sighed, like she was bored. Like this was just another inconvenience in her day. Fine. A year. A year. Liam took a step back, feeling like he might be sick. A whole year. His best friend. His wife. The betrayal hit him like a freight train, slamming into his ribs and leaving him breathless. You. He couldn't even finish the sentence. His hands were shaking. His whole body was shaking. Naomi arched a brow. What? Gonna hit me? Go ahead, Liam. Show me what kind of man you really are. Liam's nostrils flared. I would never. She smirked again. Of course not. That's the problem, isn't it? Liam exhaled sharply, forcing himself to think through the blinding rage. She wanted a reaction. She wanted him to snap. But he wouldn't give her that satisfaction. Instead, he took a step back. Then another. Until he was standing by the front door. You have 5 minutes to pack, he said, his voice flat. And if you're not out by then, I'll be the one calling the cops. Naomi's expression darkened. You wouldn't. Liam pulled his phone out of his pocket and held it up. Try me. For the first time, she actually looked uncertain. For a second, Liam thought she might argue again, but instead, she turned sharply on her heel and stormed upstairs. Liam let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He had thought this would hurt more, that it would feel like his whole world was crumbling. But now, all he felt was relief. This was the beginning of the end, and he was ready for it. The door slammed shut behind Naomi, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the house was silent. Too silent. Liam stood there, staring at the space she had just occupied, his breath slow and controlled. His heart should have been pounding, but all he felt was an eerie calm, like the eye of a storm. His best friend. His wife. A whole year. The weight of it pressed down on his chest, but he didn't let it crush him. He couldn't. He wouldn't give them that power. Instead, he grabbed his car keys and walked out the door. It didn't take long to find Josh. Liam knew exactly where he'd be. Their usual bar. The same place they had been going to since college. The same place where Josh had once given him a drunken speech about brotherhood and loyalty. What a joke. Liam stepped inside, his eyes immediately scanning the dimly lit space. And there he was, Josh, sitting at the bar, a glass of whiskey in hand, laughing at something the bartender said. Liam's jaw tightened. How dare he look so relaxed? Before he even realized what he was doing, his feet were already moving. Josh looked up just as Liam reached him, his expression shifting from amusement to shock in an instant. Liam. He didn't get another word out before Liam's fist connected with his jaw. The impact sent Josh stumbling off his stool, the glass in his hand shattering on the floor. The bartender gasped, and a few people turned to stare, but Liam didn't care. He loomed over Josh, breathing hard, fists clenched. Josh groaned, touching his jaw as he looked up at Liam with wide eyes. What the hell, man? Liam didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, towering over the man who had stabbed him in the back, watching the betrayal settle into his so-called best friend's face. You slept with my wife, Liam finally said, his voice low and dangerous. Josh paled. His lips parted, but no words came out. Liam scoffed. What? No smartass excuse? No, it was a mistake, bro. Josh swallowed hard, then sat up slowly, rubbing his jaw. Liam, listen. Don't. Liam cut him off. Just don't. I don't need to hear whatever garbage excuse you're about to come up with. Josh exhaled, his shoulders slumping. I never wanted to hurt you, man. Liam let out a bitter laugh. Oh yeah? You just accidentally tripped and landed in my wife's bed? For an entire year. Josh flinched. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Liam took a step closer, his fist still clenched. Did you love her? Did you two sit around laughing at me behind my back? Tell me, Josh, was it fun? Josh looked away, shame flickering across his face. I don't know, man. It just happened. Liam let out a breath, shaking his head. Right. Just happened. The words tasted bitter on his tongue. That's what Naomi had said too. It was funny, really, how people always try to downplay betrayal. Like it was just some accident. Like it wasn't a conscious decision made over and over again. Liam's fingers twitched at his sides. A part of him wanted to hit Josh again, to make him feel even a fraction of the pain he had caused. But what would be the point? Josh wasn't worth it. Naomi wasn't worth it. Liam took a step back, rolling his shoulders. You know what, Josh? You're pathetic. Josh looked up, guilt etched into his features. Liam, come on, man. No. Liam shook his head. We're done. I never want to see you again. Josh's face fell. Dude. Don't dude me, Liam snapped. I don't have a best friend anymore. The guy I called my brother? He's dead to me. Josh opened his mouth like he wanted to argue, but he must have seen something in Liam's eyes, because he closed it again. Liam turned on his heel and walked away. Josh didn't try to stop him, because he knew he had already lost. Liam drove home, his hands gripping the wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. His head was buzzing, but for the first time in days, his thoughts were clear. Naomi was gone. Josh was out of his life. And now, it was time for the next step. As soon as he parked in the driveway, he pulled out his phone and dialed his lawyer. Mr. Carter? The lawyer's voice came through the speaker. It's Liam, he said, his voice firm. I want to file for divorce. There was a brief pause. Then, understood. Let's set up a meeting. Liam exhaled, closing his eyes for a moment. This was it. The final chapter of this nightmare. And when it was over, he would never let anyone play him for a fool again. The morning sun streamed through the curtains, casting long shadows across the empty side of the bed. It used to be Naomi's spot, but now, just a cold, empty space. Liam sat up, rolling his shoulders, feeling an odd sense of relief settle over him. The anger, the heartbreak, the betrayal, it was all still there, but something had shifted overnight. He wasn't trapped anymore. Last night, after cutting ties with Josh, he had called his lawyer and set the divorce process in motion. It was a clean break, no second thoughts. Naomi was out. But before this was truly over, there was one last thing he needed to do. He grabbed his phone and scrolled through the messages he had intentionally ignored. Naomi's desperate attempts at damage control. Liam, please. Just talk to me. You're making a mistake. Let's work through this. I love you, you idiot. Don't throw away everything we built. Liam snorted. She still thought she had control. Still thought she could twist words and emotions into a safety net for herself. Not this time. 2 hours later, Liam walked into the coffee shop where he had agreed to meet Naomi. He didn't owe her this, but he wanted to see her one last time, if only to watch her face when she realized she had lost. Naomi sat at a corner table, her sunglasses perched on her head, hair styled perfectly, as if she wasn't the one who had wrecked their marriage. Her eyes widened the moment she saw him. Liam, thank God. She reached for his hand, but he didn't let her touch him. Instead, he pulled out the divorce papers and set them down in front of her. Her smile faltered. What is this? You know what it is. Liam leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. Sign them. Naomi's lips pressed into a thin line. Liam, come on, don't do this here. Why not? His voice was calm, too calm. We're already a public disaster, aren't we? She sighed dramatically, rubbing her temples. You're acting like this is all my fault. Liam laughed. Actually laughed. That's cute. Who else should I blame? The damn weather. Naomi's expression turned defensive. You never paid attention to me anymore, Liam. You were always working, always focused on your stupid projects. I needed more. He stared at her, feeling nothing but disgust. So your solution was to cheat? To lie? To try and trap me with a kid that isn't even mine? Her jaw tightened. It wasn't like that. Then explain it to me, he challenged. Tell me how it was. Make it make sense. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Because there was no good excuse. Liam exhaled slowly. Just sign the papers, Naomi. She scoffed, leaning back in her chair. And what if I don't? Liam smirked. There it was, the last shred of her control slipping. Then I'll make this public. Her eyes widened. You wouldn't. He shrugged. Try me. You think I haven't saved the texts? The proof of the affair? The DNA test. He leaned in. You played games, Naomi. But you forgot. I'm better at winning. Naomi's face paled. She knew she had no way out. No more lies to spin, no more manipulations to pull. Her fingers clenched around the pen as she signed her name with jerky movements. When she was done, she shoved the papers back at him. I hope you're happy. Liam stood up, sliding the papers into his folder. Oh, I will be. And with that, he walked out of the cafe, leaving her behind for good. That night, Liam sat on his balcony, looking out at the city lights. Everything was different now. No more lies. No more betrayal. No more pretending. His phone buzzed, and he glanced at the screen. It was a message from his lawyer. Divorce officially in motion. She has no claims to anything. You're free, Liam. Free. The words settled in his chest like a weight lifting off his shoulders. Naomi thought she had won. She thought she could play him, but she had no idea who she was dealing with. Liam smirked to himself. Game over. Liam had imagined this moment 1,000 times. The day he'd finally be free of Naomi, free of the weight of betrayal, free to start over. But now that it was here, he didn't feel the overwhelming rush of relief he had expected. Instead, there was just silence. A quiet kind of peace. The divorce was officially in motion. Naomi was out of his life. Josh was a distant memory, nothing more than another lesson in trust and how easily it could be shattered. Liam took a deep breath, letting the night air cool the fire that had burned inside him for so long. For the first time in months, he felt like himself again. The next morning, he walked into his lawyer's office to go over the final details. Good news, Mr. Carter said, sliding a document across the desk. Naomi didn't contest anything. She signed the financial agreement, waived any rights to your assets, and, he tapped the final page, she's agreed to a clean split. No further contact. Liam exhaled slowly, scanning the papers. It was official. No alimony. No legal battles. Naomi was gone. Perfect, he said, signing the last page. The lawyer nodded. You made the right move, Liam. Some people waste years trying to fix a marriage that's already dead. Liam gave a dry chuckle. Yeah, well, I learned my lesson. He shook hands with Mr. Carter and walked out of the office, stepping into the bright sunlight. It should have felt like a victory. Maybe in a way it was. But deep down, he knew this wasn't the end of his journey. It was just the beginning. The beginning of rebuilding. That night, Liam went through the house, purging every trace of Naomi. Every picture, every piece of clothing she left behind, even the expensive perfume she used to drown herself in. He tossed it all into a box and shoved it in the garage. Maybe he'd burn it later. As he moved through the house, memories tried to creep in. The laughter they once shared, the late nights on the couch, the mornings where she'd pretend to still be asleep just so he'd bring her coffee. All of it was a lie. It wasn't love. It was convenience. It was manipulation. She never loved him. She loved what he gave her. And that realization? That was the real closure. Liam sat down on the edge of his bed, running a hand through his hair. He had spent so much time thinking about what he had lost. But now, Now it was time to focus on what he was gaining. His freedom, his peace, his future. A week later, Liam was out with a couple of friends. Real friends. Ones who had been there for him through the worst of it. Man, I still can't believe Naomi had the nerve to try and baby trap you, his friend Mark said, shaking his head. That's some next-level crazy. Liam smirked, taking a sip of his drink. Yeah, well, I dodged a bullet. Dodged a damn missile. Another friend, Ethan, added. But seriously, bro, what's next for you? You gonna take some time to chill, or are you jumping back into the dating scene? Liam laughed, shaking his head. Hell no. I think I'll enjoy being single for a while. Smart move, Mark said, raising his glass. To new beginnings, then? Liam clinked his glass against theirs, a small smile tugging at his lips. New beginnings. That's exactly what this was. He wasn't the same man who had walked blindly into a one-sided marriage, who had ignored red flags for the sake of love. He was smarter now, stronger, wiser. And as he looked around at the people who actually cared about him, who had never betrayed him, he realized something important. He had won. Naomi lost the moment she chose lies over loyalty. Josh lost the moment he thought he could stab his best friend in the back and walk away without consequences. Liam? He walked away a free man. And nothing felt better than that.